Welcome to my channel. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. I hope you enjoy the story, so let's get started. Jax Morgan stood at the kitchen counter, holding a hot cup of coffee with a smile on his face. The morning sun of Atlanta streamed through the window, highlighting the gleam of Alyssa's engagement ring as she moved around the kitchen. "Just 3 more weeks," Jax said, his voice filled with excitement. Alyssa turned, her blonde hair swinging as she met his gaze. "I can't believe it's almost here," she replied, her smile faltering slightly. Jax didn't catch the subtle tension in her stance as he gulped down his coffee, his mind already racing with the busy day ahead. Managing a big work project and last-minute wedding plans. "I've got to go," he said, quickly kissing Alyssa on the cheek. "See you at dinner tonight," she nodded, watching as he grabbed his briefcase and headed out. While Jack navigated the morning traffic, his phone buzzed a message from his younger brother, Derek. "Hey bro, we still good for lunch?" Jack sighed, feeling a mix of affection and mild annoyance. Derek always needed something, but he was family, and Jax felt the pull of responsibility. "Sure," he texted back. Usual place at 12:30. The morning sped by in a blur of meetings and calls, and before he knew it, Jax was sliding into a booth across from Derek at their favorite diner. So Derek began, flashing his familiar charming grin. "How's the wedding planning going?" Jax couldn't help but smile. "It's good. Busy but good. Alyssa's handling most of it." "That's great," Derek replied, his eyes darting to his phone. "Listen, I hate to ask, but I'm in a bit of a jam," and there it was. Jax felt his shoulders tighten as Derek launched into a complicated story about a missed sales quota and looming eviction. It always came down to money with Derek. "How much?" Jax asked, cutting straight to the point. Derek looked sheepish. $2,000, just until my next commission check comes in. I promise." Jax rubbed his temples, feeling a headache forming. "Derek, you're 30 years old. When are you going to sort things out?" I know, Derek said, raising his hands defensively. "I'm working on it. This is the last time. I swear." It was a promise Jax had heard before, but still, he found himself reaching for his checkbook. Family was family, after all. As he signed the check, Jax missed the brief flash of guilt on Derek's face. The next few weeks flew by in a blur of work and wedding prep. Before Jax knew it, it was the night of their engagement party. Their parents' suburban backyard was transformed, with twinkling lights strung between trees and the smell of barbecue in the air. Jack stood near the makeshift bar, watching Alyssa mingle with guests. "She's quite a catch," his father Roy said, patting him on the shoulder. "You've done well, son." Jack smiled, pride swelling in his chest. "Thanks, Dad." His mother, Carla, bustled over and pulled him into a tight hug. "Oh, my baby boy, all grown up and getting married." Mom, Jax protested, though he wasn't truly annoyed. He loved his parents, even if they were sometimes a bit much. The evening went on, filled with laughter and congratulations. As the party wound down, Derek clinked his glass, calling for everyone's attention. "If I could have a moment," he said, his voice projecting across the yard. "I'd like to say a few words about my big brother and his beautiful fiancée." Jax felt Alyssa tense beside him as Derek spoke, but he was too caught up in the moment to notice. "Jax has always been there for me," Derek continued, his voice heavy with emotion. "Through thick and thin, he's had my back, and now he's found someone who completes him perfectly." He lifted his glass towards Alyssa, saying, "To Jax and Alyssa, may your love grow stronger with every day that passes." The guests cheered, and Jax pulled Derek into a tight embrace. "Thanks, little brother," he whispered as they hugged. Jax didn't notice the quick, loaded glance exchanged between Derek and Alyssa. The days that followed were a blur of last-minute wedding preparations. Jax threw himself into his work, eager to finish a big project before the honeymoon. It was late one night, close to midnight, when Jax's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Curiosity piqued, he opened it, and his world collapsed. There on the screen were photos and a video of Alyssa and Derek entangled, partially clothed. The timestamps showed they were recent, some from just days before. Jax felt sick. His hands trembled as he scrolled through the images, each one driving the knife deeper into his heart. He didn't sleep that night, his mind spinning with questions and accusations. When morning arrived, he was waiting in the kitchen when Alyssa appeared, eyes bleary and yawning. "We need to talk," Jax said, his voice cold and flat. Alyssa stopped, sensing the shift in his mood. "What's wrong?" she asked. Without a word, Jax slid his phone across the counter. Alyssa's face went pale as she saw the screen. "Jax, I can explain," she started, but he cut her off. "Explain what?" he snapped. "That you've been sleeping with my brother? That you've lied to my face?" It's not what it looks like, Alyssa pleaded, tears welling up. Those photos have to be fake. Someone's trying to tear us apart. Jax laughed bitterly. Don't insult my intelligence, Alyssa. I know what I'm seeing. The argument erupted, accusations flying and voices raised until they were both hoarse. Finally, Alyssa collapsed to the floor, sobbing. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Jax stood over her, his anger turning into a deep, aching hurt. How long, he asked quietly. Alyssa looked up, her makeup streaked with tears. 6 months, she confessed. The admission hit Jax like a blow. 6 months of lies and deceit. There's more, Alyssa said, her voice shaking. I'm pregnant. Jax felt the room spin. He gripped the counter for support. Is it mine, he asked, already doubting the answer. Alyssa shook her head. I don't know, she whispered. It could be yours. Or Derek's. In that instant, Jax felt something inside him shatter. The future he had envisioned, the life he had been building, crumbled to dust. Get out, he said, his voice empty. Pack your things and leave my house. Alyssa reached out, but he pulled away. Jax, please. We're done, he said firmly. The wedding's off. I never want to see you again. As Alyssa fled to the bedroom, sobbing, Jax's thoughts turned to Derek, his own brother. The betrayal cut deep, leaving a wound he wasn't sure would ever heal. With shaking hands, he dialed his parents. When his mother answered, he could barely get the words out. Mom, he choked. I need to talk to Dad. It's about Derek. An hour later, Jax was pacing his parents' living room like a caged animal. When the front door opened and Derek walked in, Jax saw red. Hey, what's the emergency? Derek's words were cut short as Jax's fist connected with his jaw. You son of a ... Jax growled, grabbing Derek by the shirt and slamming him against the wall. How could you? Derek's initial shock faded to a smug grin, even as blood trickled from his split lip. Bro, you can't blame me. Alyssa came on to me, said she needed a real man. The taunt pushed Jax over the edge. He swung again, his fists landing on Derek's face and body. She's carrying your child, he roared. My future. It took both Royce and Carla to drag Jax off his brother. Derek slumped to the floor, his face bruised and bleeding. Stop this, Carla cried, her voice panicked. We're family. Roy stepped between his sons, his face ashen. What in God's name is happening here? Between gasps and sobs, the truth spilled out. Carla sank onto the couch, while Roy stood silent, disbelief etched on his face. Jax, Roy finally said, his voice heavy with disappointment. Violence is not the answer. We need to sit and work this out as a family. Jack looked at his father, stunned. Talk it through. Are you serious? He said. Carla, trying to mediate, pleaded, your brother made a mistake, but he's still family. We can work this out. Jax's gaze shifted from his parents to Derek, who was being comforted by Carla. It struck Jax like a heavy blow. They were planning to forgive Derek again, just as always. No, Jax said, his tone icy and resolute. Not this time. He's no brother of mine, and if you side with him, then I don't have parents anymore. Ignoring his mother's sobs and his father's shouts to return, Jack stormed out of the house, climbed into his car, and drove away. A new emotion surged within him, overtaking the pain and betrayal. Rage, pure, unfiltered rage. His mind raced as he sped away from his childhood home. Who had sent those photos and videos? Why now, just weeks before the wedding? And more importantly, what was he going to do about it? One thing was clear, Derek and Alyssa would pay for their actions. As for the person who had exposed their affair, Jax wasn't sure whether to thank them or destroy them too. But he would find out who it was, and when he did, he would have his revenge. The North Carolina mountains faded in his rearview mirror as Jax drove into the quiet town he now called home. It had been 3 months since he left Atlanta, 3 months since his life had fallen apart. The fury that brought him here had simmered to a low but constant anger that still drove him every day. Jax parked outside the modest cabin he rented and, stepping out of the car, ignored yet another missed call from his mother, just as he had ignored countless others. Inside, Jax powered up his laptop and checked his work emails. The remote engineering projects he'd taken on provided a steady income and, more importantly, the solitude he craved. No office politics, no small talk, no reminders of his past. As he scrolled through his inbox, a new email caught his attention. Derek Morgan, confidential information. Jax's heart pounded as he opened it. The email contained detailed records of Derek's transactions, revealing several deals with suspiciously inflated figures. The sender was anonymous, but the message was unmistakable. This was ammunition. A cold smile crept across Jax's face. "Got you, little brother," he muttered. Over the next few days, Jax meticulously verified the information's authenticity. Once convinced, he set up an anonymous email account and drafted a message to Derek's company's HR department and board. His finger hovered over the send button. Was he really going to do this? End his brother's career? The memory of Derek's arrogant smirk as he taunted Jax about Alyssa flashed in his mind. Without further hesitation, Jax hit send. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Within a week, Jax heard through old contacts that Derek had been fired, his reputation in ruins. Jax allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction, but it was short-lived. This was just the start. As the weeks went by, the question that had haunted him since that night resurfaced: who had sent him those photos and videos. Jax became obsessed, spending hours each night digging through old contacts, cross-referencing numbers, and reaching out to former acquaintances for clues. One evening, while poring over his notes, a name jumped out at him: Maya Thompson, Derek's ex, the one he'd left for Alyssa years ago. Could it be? Jax wondered aloud. He found Maya's contact details and, after a moment's hesitation, sent her a message. "Maya, it's Jax Morgan. I know it's been a while, but I'd like to meet up for coffee. There's something I need to discuss." To his surprise, Maya replied almost instantly, "Jax, it's been ages. Sure, I'd love to catch up. How about tomorrow at 2 p.m? At the Bluebird Cafe the next day, Jax sat across from Maya in the quaint coffee shop. She looked much the same: dark hair, piercing eyes, and a smile that never quite reached them. Maya stirred her latte and glanced at Jax. "So, Jax, what brings you to this area? Last I heard, you were planning a wedding in Atlanta." Jax's jaw tightened. "Plans change," he replied tersely. Maya raised an eyebrow. "Oh? Do tell." Jax scrutinized her expression, searching for any hint that she already knew the story. "It's a long, ugly mess," he said, deflecting. "But I'm more interested in what you've been up to. Still working in marketing?" Maya nodded. "Yeah, just got promoted to an executive role." She paused, a sly smile crossing her face. "I heard about Derek's issues." What a shame. The casual tone of her remark set off alarm bells for Jax. He leaned in, lowering his voice. "Maya, I have to ask, did you have anything to do with what happened?" Maya's smile widened, but she avoided a direct answer. Instead, she replied, "You know, Jax, there's an old saying: what goes around comes around." Derek made a lot of enemies over the years. It was just a matter of time before it caught up with him. A chill ran down Jax's spine. The knowing look in Maya's eyes, the slight smirk, she knew more than she was admitting. Before Jax could dig deeper, Maya redirected the conversation to safer topics. As they parted, Maya's words lingered in Jax's mind. He was now more certain than ever that she was somehow involved, but he needed evidence. Back at his cabin, Jax's phone rang. It was Alyssa. He stared at the screen, his thumb hovering over the decline button. After a brief pause, he answered. "What do you want, Alyssa?" he asked coldly. "Jax, please." Alyssa's voice sounded desperate. "I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need your help." Jax laughed bitterly. "My help? Are you serious?" "Please, just listen," Alyssa begged. "I'm in my 3rd trimester now, and Derek, he's completely abandoned me. I have nowhere else to go." Jax felt a swirl of emotions: anger, pity, and a faint, unwelcome pang of concern. "What about the baby?" he asked, despite himself. "That's why I'm calling," Alyssa said, her voice breaking. "Jax, there's a chance the baby could be yours. I know I don't deserve this, but I'm begging you. We could do a paternity test. Don't you want to know?" Jax's mind whirled. He had never considered that the baby might be his. His thoughts had been consumed with rage and revenge, pushing aside any notion of the pregnancy. I need to think about this," Jax finally said. "I'll call you back." He hung up, his head spinning as he tried to make sense of this new twist. Another piece of information reached him from his contacts. Derek had moved in with a wealthy socialite, a woman he met through his previous job. He was living off her money, showing no interest in supporting Alyssa or the baby. The news reignited Jax's anger. Derek hadn't changed. He was still as selfish and irresponsible as ever. But now, Jax had a new focus for his revenge. In the following days, Jax gathered details about Derek's new life. He discovered the socialite's name was Vivian Carlisle and found her address in a high-end Atlanta neighborhood. An idea began to take shape. Jax picked up his phone and called Derek's number, but it went to voicemail. "Derek, it's Jax," he said, forcing his voice to sound conciliatory. "I know things have been rough between us, but you're still my brother. I think it's time we talk and try to work things out. Call me when you get this." Jax hung up, a grim smile spreading across his face. The trap was set. Now, he just had to wait for Derek to take the bait. It didn't take long. The next day, Jax's phone rang, Derek's name flashing on the screen. "Hey, big brother," Derek said cautiously. "I got your message. Are you serious about talking?" Jax swallowed his disgust. "Yeah, I am. I've had some time to think and, well, we're family, right? How about we meet up, grab a drink, and try to sort this out?" He could hear the relief in Derek's voice. "That sounds great, Jax, really great. When and where?" Jax replied, "How about next Friday?" "There's a bar downtown called the Rusty Nail. Let's say 8 p.m. "I'll be there," Derek said quickly. "And Jax, thanks for reaching out. It means a lot." As Jax hung up, he felt a flicker of something, regret, maybe guilt, but he quickly pushed it away. Derek had made his choices, and now he had to face the consequences. The days leading up to their meeting dragged on. Jax spent his days working and his nights plotting. He casually reached out to several of Derek's old colleagues and family friends, dropping hints that he and Derek would be at the Rusty Nail on Friday night to try and reconcile, knowing word would spread. Finally, Friday night arrived. Jax got to the bar early, securing a table with a perfect view of the entrance. He sipped on a whiskey, his stomach churning with a mix of anticipation and dread. At 8:05, Derek walked in. Jax noticed he looked thinner, with dark circles under his eyes. For a moment, a flicker of old brotherly concern surfaced, but Jax quickly reminded himself why they were there, and his determination solidified. "Jax," Derek said, sliding into the chair across from him. "It's good to see you." Jax nodded, unable to trust his voice just yet. He signaled the bartender for another drink. So Derek began, nervously fidgeting with his napkin. "How have you been?" Jax took a deep breath. "Cut the small talk, Derek. We both know why we're here." Derek's face fell. "Jax, I know I messed up badly, but I want to make things right. Tell me how I can fix this." Jax let out a harsh, bitter laugh. "Fix this? You think you can fix this?" His voice grew louder, drawing the attention of those nearby. "You slept with my fiancée, Derek. You got her pregnant. You destroyed my life for what? A cheap thrill." Derek's eyes widened, realizing this wasn't the reconciliation he had hoped for. "Jax, please keep your voice down," Derek pleaded, but Jax was just getting started. He laid out every betrayal, every lie, every time Derek had disappointed him. As he spoke, Jax noticed familiar faces entering the bar, Derek's old colleagues, family friends, just as he had planned. And now Jax continued, his voice filled with contempt. "You're living off some rich woman while Alyssa is left to struggle alone with your child. You're pathetic, Derek. You always have been." Derek stood up, his face red with anger and shame. "You set me up," he hissed. "You never wanted to make peace. You just wanted to humiliate me." "No, Derek," Jax replied calmly. "You humiliated yourself. I'm just making sure everyone sees you for who you really are." As Derek stormed out of the bar, Jax caught the looks of shock and disgust from the onlookers. He knew that by the next morning, Derek's reputation would be in ruins once more. The following day, Jax met with Maya again for coffee. This time, he didn't waste any time. "It was you, wasn't it?" he said bluntly. "You sent me those photos and videos of Derek and Alyssa." Maya didn't deny it. Instead, she smiled a cold, satisfied smile. "Derek ruined my life when he left me for Alyssa," she said. "I've been waiting years for the right moment to return the favor. When I found out about their affair, I knew it was time." Jax felt a strange mix of gratitude and discomfort. "Why didn't you tell me it was you?" before he asked. Maya shrugged. "I wanted to see what you'd do with the information. I have to say, I'm impressed. You've dismantled Derek's life pretty thoroughly." As they talked, Jax realized that he and Maya shared the same goal, making Derek pay for his actions. It was a cold comfort, but a comfort nonetheless. The weeks that followed were a blur. Jax received the paternity test results. The baby wasn't his. He cut all ties with Alyssa, blocking her number and email. Derek, now jobless and recently dumped Vivian, had kicked him out after learning the whole story, seemed to be drifting from one failed scheme to the next. Jax threw himself into his work, taking on more challenging projects and moving into a larger apartment in the city, slowly rebuilding his life on his own terms. One evening, standing in his new office and looking out over the city skyline, Jax felt something he hadn't felt in months. Peace. The anger that had driven him for so long was still there, but it no longer consumed him. He thought about Derek and Alyssa, and about the baby who would grow up in the midst of all this turmoil. For a moment, Jax felt a pang of regret for the scorched earth path he had taken, but then he remembered the betrayal, the lies and the years spent cleaning up Derek's messes. No, he thought, he had done what was necessary. He had taken control, refused to be a victim, and now, finally, he was free. As the sun set over the city, Jax smiled to himself. He had survived the betrayal, grown stronger, and would never let anyone hurt him like that again. Jax stared at his phone, Derek's name glaring back at him on the screen. It had been 6 months since their confrontation at the Rusty Nail, 6 months of silence broken only by rumors of Derek's continued downward spiral. Jax's jaw tightened as he pressed the call button. Derek's voice crackled through the speaker, a mix of exhaustion and surprise. "We need to talk," Jax said, his tone cold and flat. "In person, tomorrow night at 8 p.m, the park near Mum and Dad's old house." "Jax, I don't think be there." Jax cut him off, ending the call before Derek could object. The next evening, Jax arrived at the park early, his body tense with anticipation. As the sun dipped below the horizon, he saw Derek approaching. His brother looked worn down, clothes rumpled, hair unkempt. "Hey," Derek greeted cautiously, keeping his distance. Jax didn't respond, instead fixing Derek with a hard stare. "I want to know why, Derek. Why Alyssa? Why ruin everything?" Derek winced at the bluntness. I don't know, Jax. It just happened." "Bullshit," Jax snapped. "Things don't just happen. You made a choice. Both of you did." "I'm sorry, Jax. I know it doesn't change anything, but I am truly, deeply sorry." Jax laughed bitterly. "You're right, it doesn't change a damn thing." Leaning forward, his voice dropped to a menacing tone. "How's life treating you, Derek? Enjoying the fallout of your actions?" Derek's shoulders sagged. "I haven't seen Alyssa or the baby. I can't face it." Typical, Jax sneered. "Always running away from your responsibilities. You're pathetic." "What do you want from me?" Derek asked, his voice breaking. "I've lost everything, my job, my reputation, my family." "I want you to suffer," Jax said coldly. "I want you to wake up every day knowing you destroyed the only people who ever truly cared about you. I want you to carry that guilt for the rest of your miserable life." Derek looked up, tears in his eyes. "Can't we move past this? We're still brothers." "No," Jax cut him off. "We're not. You're dead to me, Derek. This is the last time you'll ever see me. Don't try to contact me again with that." Jax stood and walked away, leaving Derek alone on the bench. He felt no remorse, no pity, just a cold satisfaction that justice had been served. The next morning, Jax met Maya for coffee. She studied his face as he sat down. "How did it go with Derek?" she asked. "How did you know about that?" Jax asked, raising an eyebrow. Maya shrugged, a small smile playing on her lips. "I have my ways." Jax leaned back, fixing her with a steady look. "It's time for the whole truth, Maya. Why did you really send me those photos and videos?" Maya's smile faded. "You want the truth? Fine. I loved Derek. When he left me for Alyssa, it broke me. I spent years putting myself back together, always wondering what she had that I didn't." She paused, her eyes hardening. "When I found out about their affair, I saw my chance for revenge. I knew if anyone could make Derek pay, it was you." "You used me," Jax said, his voice devoid of emotion. "Yes," Maya admitted. "But can you honestly say you regret knowing the truth?" Jax thought for a moment. "No," he said finally. "But don't think that makes us friends. You're just as manipulative as Derek." Maya nodded, accepting his judgment. "Fair enough." "What will you do now?" "Move on," Jax said firmly. "Leave all of this behind." Over the next few weeks, Jax threw himself into his work with renewed intensity, taking on more demanding projects and pushing himself to new limits. His colleagues noticed the change, commenting on his sharpened focus and increased productivity. One evening, as he was wrapping up a complex design, his phone rang. An unknown number. "Hello, Jax. It's Alyssa." Jax's grip tightened on the phone. "What do you want?" I wanted to let you know the baby was born last week. A girl. I named her Lily." "Why are you telling me this?" Jax asked, his voice cold. "Because Alyssa said, her voice breaking, even after everything, you deserve to know. And I'm sorry, Jax. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need you to know how sorry I am." "You're right," Jax replied, his tone flat. It doesn't change anything. Don't contact me again. Alyssa. Ever he ended the call, feeling nothing but a dull ache where his heart used to be. The next day, Jax made a decision. He accepted a job offer from a prestigious engineering firm in Seattle. It was time for a fresh start, far away from the ghosts of his past. On his last night in Atlanta, Jax stood in his empty apartment, gazing out over the city skyline. He thought about the past year, the betrayal, the anger, the revenge. He had let it shape him into someone harder, colder, but he didn't regret it. The world had shown its true colors, and he had adapted. His phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Heard you're leaving town. Drinks to celebrate. Jax typed a response, no goodbyes. Maya. He hit send, then powered off his phone. As he locked the door to his apartment for the last time, Jax felt a grim sense of satisfaction. He had survived the betrayal and come out stronger. He walked out of the building into the warm Atlanta night, ready to face whatever came next. The past was dead, the future uncertain. But one thing was clear: Jax Morgan would never let anyone get close enough to hurt him again. He climbed into his car, casting one last look at the city that had been his home, the place where he had lost everything and found a new version of himself. Without a trace of remorse or nostalgia, he started the engine and drove away, leaving behind the ruins of his old life and the people who had burned it to the ground. In the end, Jax realized forgiveness was overrated. It was the refusal to forget and the cold determination to move forward without looking back that truly set him free, and that, he decided, was victory enough.